Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Underclock Podcast, where we talk about games and stuff. Last week, we had the wonderful Reaver from the ArmaNet Podcast, and now this week, we've been graced by the other co-host, and as Reaver said it, the other half, the better half, is that what he said?
Well, I
Oh,
thought.
did he say that? Because I was
Yeah.
shaking my head when you were giving Reaver compliments, but I'll go ahead and nod yes then.
I thought it was the other 70% of the podcast. But okay.
Oh, yeah, right. So the real ArmaNet Podcast host, Dagger, say hello.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
All right.
And beside him is Viking, the gracious co-host of Underclocked, and as always, you've got me. So today
The
we're
other
going to be
20%.
the other 20%. Today we're going to be obviously focusing on ArmaNet, Dagger, and all that kind of stuff. But this week, something happened that I think that we can all appreciate and talk about. That I thought we could start off with. Contact.
Oh, the new DLC. Right.
Discuss.
Yeah, that kind of dropped, right?
Yeah, it was just
Yeah.
out of nowhere. They just said, "Hey, in 3 days, this is coming out," and then we're like, "What's coming out?" Dagger almost ruined it for me at one of the training ops for 111. I just ran off.
On a stream that I was also watching, and I was like yelling, like, "Get the fuck out of there, dude! Run! Don't stand there!"
Was it the one where I was predicting what it was going to be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I
"Shut
didn't
up!"
know what it was. It was a real prediction, but there'd been enough clues dropped over the 2 or 3 days before that on the development branch of the game, which I'm on a lot, that hinted towards something. I wouldn't say alien, but at the very least, like something like sci-fi, because there's a lot of sci-fi leveled elements and just some code strings that they had left in the dev branch. The funny thing was the day before, I think when people started finding that stuff, they immediately removed it from dev branch, which they hardly ever do. But again, they always like to prep things because whenever they do announcements, it's usually like, 5 minutes later that the stuff is available on dev branch, which is kind of a cool thing about Bohemia. So
I heard about all of it getting taken out of dev branch too. I was like, "Oh, that's definitely a bit suspicious."
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's when you know it's somewhat authentic. But
To quantify for those people that kind of have no idea what the hell we're talking about or aren't big on Arma, Arma 3, the game that we all play a whole shitload of it. If you watched Viking stream in the past, or you've looked at my channel, or you've heard of ArmaNet, then you obviously know what Arma is. But if not, it's that military simulation game that we all play, and it just came out with the first DLC in a while, I think. How long has it been since they...
No, well, they had Global Mobilization come out at the start of the year, didn't they?
It's, that, Global Mobilization was not, that wasn't too long ago at all. What was that, like a month ago?
But wasn't that a third-party DLC, though?
So that was the creator DLC. But in terms of expansions, I think it's been 2 years.
Right,
I think
so it was kind of a big thing that is sort of, here it is.
Yeah, and they had told everyone that there wasn't going to be another expansion, which I think disappointed a lot of people that came from the Arma 2 era of Bohemia games, because Arma 2 had a shit ton of expansions. I mean, I can't remember how many there were. I want to say there was like 4 or 5 at least. There could have been more. So there was a lot of expansions there. So I think when people found out that Apex was going to be the only expansion for Arma 3, there was some disappointment. So I think this was a big surprise to people. I mean, I knew it was going to be something strange because we're now 6 years into the game. Hell, maybe more. It's
really?
It's been a while. It could even be more than that. I think check the release date.
Coop hasn't had it that long. He had it probably started last year.
Yeah.
I got it, I'd say 2 years ago, but then basically didn't play it. When did Apex come out?
I think that was 2 years ago.
So I got it when Apex came out, and I got like the Apex edition of the game, but then I didn't play it until probably the end of last year, like consistently.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we're coming up on 6 years, hell, maybe going to 7 years.
September 12th, 2013.
Yeah, I started playing Arma 3 during the alpha. I was actually part of the early access program thing that they had, and so for me, I started looking at it as like, well, the game's been out a long time. They're working on the Infusion engine, which they're using for DayZ standalone. And the Infusion engine, they've already said publicly is going to be the engine that powers all their games moving forward. So
It's a
obviously,
nice
one of
engine.
those games is going to be Arma. So for me, I was like, at the very least, and I don't have any inside information, but for me, the very least, Arma 4 is at least in pre-production, if not farther along.
Right.
So I knew that any expansion that came out was going to be kind of a little bit off the wall and a little bit kind of different than like the normal stuff.
It is.
I was sort of, yeah, and it definitely is. I was sort of thinking or hoping it was going to be some sort of like civilian resistance kind of expansion, which they did for Arma. No, actually, they did for Operation Flashpoint. They had a expansion for called Resistance, I believe, and it was one of the coolest ones because it had like farmers with their hunting rifles and stuff as
Right.
like a faction, you know.
And
And I was hoping it'd be something kind of different like that, but I think my initial disappointment for the expansion, well, I wouldn't call it disappointment. It was just like, well, okay, that's what I thought it was going to be, and here's what it is. But once I got on Dev Branch and started exploring all the assets and stuff, again, I'm looking at it from a mission builder's perspective. For me, it's just a bunch of new toys to play with. You know, new map, new items. There's got to be 1,000 items.
yeah,
in the
they
game editor.
yeah, didn't they say they added like 100 plus like actual
Yeah.
props and stuff?
And that's the thing is it is 100 plus props, but they never the props category that they kind of categorize, I think, are only things like items.
Yeah.
They I don't think they even take into account like parts and pieces of other things that you can use in missions. I mean, I
But
don't know.
I have a
When I
question
pulled up
for
the
you
list,
about
it was
that,
over
actually.
100. It was probably 500 things. I don't know.
So you've been playing Arma a long time, right?
Since Operation Flashpoint, yep, way back in the
Okay,
day.
so then I have a question for you because I was watching your I didn't watch it on the stream, but I watched your video of going through the map and going through some of the assets and some of the buildings and things like that. And I noticed that some of the buildings and stuff that are new being put in, I've seen before in like DayZ and stuff. So they're not really like you showed like a police station that had like a spiral staircase.
Yeah.
I have been in that building in DayZ before, so it's not new.
Yeah, so I was kind of made aware of that too. Some people had posted in the video, and this makes perfect sense now. I don't know why I didn't think about this. They, for the DayZ standalone, they had to take a lot of those Arma 2 buildings and redo them and kind of create interiors for them because they didn't used to have interiors. A lot of those buildings.
No.
Right.
They were, as a matter of fact, most of the houses in Arma 2 for like Shanaris and stuff, they had no interiors whatsoever.
I think it was like, you'd go into a town, there'd be like 2 or 3 buildings that you could enter, and out of
exactly,
like 20.
So then some modders came along and made some interiors, and then Bohemia did the same thing. And then for the DayZ standalone, they like blew that out and like up-res the textures. They built interiors, and so someone on the video commented and said, "Well, they're using all those assets." And I was like, "Ah, well, yep, that makes perfect sense now." So,
right.
But I'm glad they're doing that because, and I honestly I hope they release the updated Shanaris map. Or Cheneris, or however you pronounce it. I hope they release that as a free map download for Arma because, I mean, the best thing any business can ever do is to leverage their IP and continue to make money on it, or give it away for free to keep the player base activated. So, it doesn't matter if they're making this stuff for the DayZ standalone. If they can repackage it, slap some new narrative on it, make some new guns, throw those in, and create an Arma expansion, I'm behind it.
So those DayZ standalone buildings were not in Arma previously. So they were only in the standalone. Is I guess the question.
So no, I think they were in in just Arma 2, but they had lower res textures associated with them. They had a lot of them did not have interiors. If you noticed when I went inside some of the buildings, some of the doors were like blocked off with like blocking bars and barricades and stuff. None of that stuff was there in the Arma 2 versions of those buildings. I think one of the big ones I laid down, I forget which, it was some factory component, and I laid that one down and I said, oh, let's see if this one has an interior, and it did, and I know for a fact that in Arma 2 it did not. So
right.
Again, I think it's just newer, upgraded assets that they're now, leveraging in Arma, which is smart. So.
And I don't have a problem with that at all. It's just it's sort of it kind of gives ammunition to the people who are pissed off about this.
It does, yeah.
By saying like, well, they're not new. You're just reusing your assets.
Sure.
But they have updated them and they're not the same. Like they
Yeah.
brought them to the new age or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and and I mean, for me, playing devil's advocate, I mean, you have to look at things from a business perspective. I mean, to me, fans that don't look at things from the business perspective, I don't know if they feel a little bit more like kind of fair weather friends because, first off, Bohemia, I don't like every game they make, and I've bought several of their games, and some of them I don't like even after buying them. You know, I've played Take on Mars and Take on Helicopters and Wildlands and stuff like that. But I want all their games to do well because I want another Arma. You know what I mean?
Right.
Back when I played Ghost Recon a lot, I definitely didn't like all of Ubisoft's games, 100%.
Right.
But I wanted them to make a lot of money because I want more Ghost Recon games. You know what I mean? It's the same sort of thing. And that money... You know, when let's say if they release an Assassin's Creed, I'm not an Assassin's Creed player, but I can appreciate the game. I'm not an Assassin's Creed player, but I hope they do well because that money goes into just the company. It's not like it goes just to the Assassin's Creed developers.
No.
It goes to the company, and that may be used to make a new Splinter Cell game. You know what I mean? So,
oh God, imagine
a game that I'm interested. So for me. Even though Contact this is why in that video when I did the walkthrough of the assets, this is why I had no problems telling people to go buy this expansion, support the developer. And I know a lot of people, we've actually had some ArmaNet fans tell us in the past, you know, try to stay neutral. That's what we prefer, stay neutral. And I'll do that to a point, but at the end of the day, I want Arma 4. So if supporting them with expansions will get there, then that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Well, to be clear, my stance on this, I actually, on the whole like it or dislike it, I actually think this is gonna be fucking cool. From a missions builder standpoint. One, it's just a bunch of, as you said, a bunch of new toys to play with, and two, it's another element that even if you don't use all the like super alien weird shit that they've added to the game, you can now add almost like a suspense element to Arma by adding something weird, like even if you're doing all completely unrelated, but then now all of a sudden your GPSs don't work. Why? Because you put some alien device somewhere. It's not an alien mission, but now you've got this weird sort of zone or whatever. It's just like another storytelling element that you can throw in.
And on the technical side, with every expansion, and a lot of times with the DLCs, but especially with the expansions, they almost always add new like strings and new code into the game that allows new functions. So that allows mod makers to create new things that they never would have been able to create before.
Right.
And sometimes those things can be really simple. Like, you know, there's take like the attach to function in Arma 3. Before we had that, it was hard to get one object to connect to another object in Arma. You know, like if you wanted a truck to be able to carry a cargo box, right? That was technically hard. But now with the attach to command, which you can do right in Zeus, it's as easy as one click and it's done.
Right.
And now mods have been made from that, you know, towing tractors and a million other things. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff there.
You see the best creations come out of that attached to icon. Have you ever seen there's a guy that does streaming. He's Lance Corporal Leader, and I've talked to him before. He's a great guy, and he does a whole videos of just making attached to vehicles.
Yeah.
And like he gets the submarine and he makes a blimp out of it and adds like just shitloads of tanks to it for guns.
Yeah.
It's definitely something to look at.
The 111 SOG, we have an unofficial mascot. I don't know if Reavers ever talked about it, but there's an unofficial mascot called, oh god, what's its name? I think it's Gargatron. Gargatron is this giant, like, robotic monstrosity, and he's made up of like there's like 3 submarines, there's 18 tanks, and he's huge. You know, we have screenshots of him, but yeah, you have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah,
but
you can definitely see there's missions out on YouTube that have like people that just put like massive robotic people together, and like they've got arms and legs, and all they're made out of is like airplanes and fucking tanks and AA turrets and everything.
And to me, again, it spurs creativity. for example, so 111 SOG is pretty, I would say, mostly serious milsim group, but that can get kind of tiring sometimes. And what we've learned over leading the group for so many years is, and even over different games, is that you do have to kind of let people have some like fun nights where they're not, on. And so one of the things I did, this is probably 2.5, 3 years ago, was I built a mission that had nothing to do with 111 SOG. It was I think it was called the Visitors or something. It's kind of funny because it's just like Contact now. But it was essentially a mission where a bunch of buddies go out, they're hunting in the woods. So it's like tents, four-wheelers, pickup trucks, hunting rifles, etc. Only gear that you would have if you went hunting. And essentially this massive event happens, this attack happens, and it turns into like a survival horror game, right? And you have to follow the breadcrumbs, and eventually you start seeing some weird lights in the sky and aerial phenomena and all this stuff. But it required a huge second mod pack just to accomplish that. So that was hard for a lot of our players because they were like, I don't want to download another 20 gig mod pack just to be able to run this
Right.
one mission. So honestly, the first thing when I saw them announce this thing was like, I'm going to redo that mission with these assets. There won't be a huge mod pack. This will be great. So
Oh, that's
again,
what you were talking about. I remember you saying, bringing that up.
yeah. So you got to look at the bright side of things. I mean, look, I think a lot of people are already kind of complaining about the price. I think the map alone's worth the price of a mission. I mean, again, I think if you're a mission builder, especially, and someone who uses Eden a lot, the value is a lot more obvious than someone that doesn't. You know what I mean? So for
Right.
me, I can go in the map, I can play with all the parts and pieces, etc.
And it
So
looked really nice, the map. Like when I was
yeah,
looking at you going through, it
yeah,
looked really nice.
yeah.
I
So
haven't looked at it in the dev branch, but I've heard people say really good things. I watched Davidog Gamer's review on it on the
yeah,
DLC just to get some more info of like what he thinks as well, and he's got some good videos now and again on Armor.
yeah,
So
yeah. I follow him. He's got some great content.
yeah, so he talked about the map, and like the one thing that he emphasized was we get an airfield because in the last obviously DLC we didn't get one, and
Yep.
he's super keen for that. And I'm just like sitting there like, why would you complain about that? In
Yeah.
the last
It's
DLC, it's all about vehicle warfare and whatnot, where this one is going to be all this other shit. So
and I think that's it. Is that it's all different strokes. So you get people that are like, let's say if it's people that are only ever interested in playing, maybe they're only going to play Warlords ever, and that's all they're going to play. Well, this probably does not interest them that much. But again, they have to look at it from the perspective of, does buying this and supporting this piece of DLC further my chances of getting another Arma or whatever it is they like? And this could apply to any game studio. It doesn't have to apply to Bohemia.
but we all want
I
to.
wanted to touch on that point though,
Mhm.
because you were saying that them getting, or this DLC, the Arma 4 in your brain, it would make sense to be in like at least a pre-alpha state where they're starting it, right? But aren't they making a game right now that isn't Arma
Well,
called Vigor?
they have Vigor, and I think it's full release. You can play it on the
it's
Xbox.
out.
Yeah,
Is
it's
it?
out.
Pretty sure isn't it on Steam as well at the moment?
I'm not sure. Possibly. I definitely see it on Xbox when I'm like on the Games
Oh
Hub
yeah,
or
July
whatever.
30th, 2018. It is out.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
I thought it
it's
was still
out.
being worked on.
I think they're still supporting it. I think that Vigor and Daisy Standalone are kind of their Xbox projects, but there's no denying that Arma is their cash cow.
Oh yeah.
I
Oh,
mean,
Vigor is not even on PC yet. It's not
oh
even out on
really?
PC.
Okay.
It's only Xbox
So
right now.
Vigor or the Arma franchise is their cash cow. That's what they're known for. There will be an Arma 4. I mean, I don't know what it's going to be called or what it's going to be centered around, but there'll be an Arma 4 for sure. I mean, there has to be. And they'd be silly not to already be in pre-production. Again, I don't know anything about this, but I do have a lot of friends in the game development world. I've done a lot of work for game developers. And I actually went to school for game design originally, so I still have a lot of friends in that world, and I can tell you that games, the pre-production starts so early, it's crazy. One of my good friends actually, is one of the lead people at Bethesda, and he'll tell you that even when a project becomes openly known to be an alpha stage, they've probably been working on it for at least 3 to 4 years before that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
I have a buddy who's a game developer as well. He works for Piranha Games. They make the MechWarrior games.
Yep.
And same sort of thing. Like they're games that they haven't even the world doesn't even know is being made, and they're already like it's playable.
Yeah.
Well,
MechWarrior is one of my favorite series from back in the day, by the way.
Is it really? Yeah. Well, one of my really good buddies from high school is works at that studio making, like, he's currently working on MechWarrior Online and stuff.
Awesome.
So yeah.
I used to. There was a time when I was really big into mech games.
Yeah.
Just so everyone knows, I have a buddy too.
Do you? You have friends?
Yeah. They're nothing special, but they're there.
Yeah. I have a friend. I mean, he's homeless, but he's a good friend.
You guys are just showing it off, okay? Just take a step back for a second. Also, can I just say, Coop, are you drinking orange juice out of the fucking carton?
It's 5 Alive, but yeah.
Oh, okay. What is 5 Alive?
Yeah, what is?
This is 5 Alive Peach Citrus.
Oh.
So it is but yeah. So it's 5 fruits. It's sort of like, think it is like orange juice, but it's got what is it? Orange, grape, lemon, passion fruit, and peach.
Sounds good to me.
Juice.
Fuck no.
Gives you your vitamins. Nothing wrong with that.
It's like, you were talking halfway through there. Coop just like grabbed this giant carton and just started drinking it. Like, what the fuck? Like drinking.
I know. I can see his eyes blow up. I'm like, shh, don't say anything. just let it go.
Anyway.
Now you'd see. Now you made me thirsty, so I got to go for mine.
Yeah, you got your whatever it was, citrus water or whatever.
It's like a citrus green tea. So it's not that good. It kind of tastes like piss, but
it's also a hashtag not sponsored.
Not sponsored.
Yeah, by piss. Yeah, we don't sponsor piss around here. We're not into that.
Just so everyone knows, I'm drinking Coke, so it's okay. It's Coke Zero, so it's okay. It's good for you, kinda.
Coke. Oh, what? Okay, that's a stretch and a half.
It's better than normal Coke, apparently.
Man, it's scientifically, it's technically worse.
Shut up.
But yeah, it uses aspartame instead of the shit that like gets you that's bad for you. So aspartame doesn't like gain you weight or be like bad for it, but it freezes fat cells. So technically, it's actually worse for you.
Don't care.
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. Don't say that it's better but scientifically, it's technically worse. It's just it doesn't make you worse, but it makes it harder to get better. Whereas Coke only makes things worse. But then if you stop drinking Coke, it's easier to get better.
Right.
It's sort of the way.
I had it in my fridge. It was already half done. I was like, "Fuck it, I'll drink this instead of like, just making a coffee or something."
You fucking sponsored by Coke over there?
I
you
was
got the
shirt
on,
the shirt
fucking,
and everything.
Jesus.
I was just trying.
This is good for you. Drink this. It's only
$3.99. I had to get something because someone was like, "I'll just show up like 5 minutes late. It'll be fine."
Yeah, who's that asshole?
Yeah, I don't know.
Sounds like the worst.
It's a guy at the end there.
Yep.
It's that guy that
Right,
really
Spartak sponsored by Coca-Cola.
Yeah, well, that would actually be insane. That would be awesome.
It would never happen.
But I think what we can do is now that we've talked about contact, I think, Dagger, we can kind of dig into you a little bit.
Sure.
Viking, you want to ask basically the exact same questions we asked Reaver? I'm sure the answers are going to be similar, but...
Yeah, they probably will be. If we just said something like, how long have you guys been playing together? Because we obviously know that already because Reaver answered that question in the last podcast.
Yep.
So it'll be more like...
What's your side of the birth of ArmaNet?
Yeah. First off, before we do that, what got you?
Yep.
Reaver said that you were the one that got him into Arma. We want to know what made you, see Arma as a potential game that you might like.
He said, "quote unquote, this is the game." Unquote. That was his quote from you to him. So live up to that.
It kind of goes back a ways, in just in terms of like the type of games I typically play. So first and foremost, I very rarely play more than 2 games at any one time, and I mean like kind of like right now I probably am playing Arma, and then if I had to add one more, maybe Sea of Thieves. But like, there's no other games going on in my house, even though I own a lot of them. And the reason is that I just can't. I only have so much free time, and I I have to divvy it up. I got a wife, I got a kid. I have to divvy it up, and the games that I'm usually playing, at least one of them, I'm 150% into. Meaning, in the case of Arma, I'm playing the game, I'm building missions, I'm doing heavy mods right now. We're about to release a big update to 111 Sogs mod pack, so I'm doing tons of custom code and config. So I'm like all in, and the ArmaNet and all that. And then I'll usually have another game that I'm kind of playing as a distraction, right? Which
You're
is
welcome
good.
for Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, which is healthy, and Sea of Thieves is a perfect game for that. And in the past, there's been other games that have dominated my time, outside of Arma. But going way back, I was really big into early PC games, and the two games I was really into. The first one was a game by a company called Nova Logic, and it was called Delta Force. And
That game, hell yeah.
Delta Force was like the first, like what I would call tactical military shooter um, that I ever played on the PC. And the big thing about Delta Force that I remember very clearly, and I remember thinking that this was amazing, was it was the first game you could really shoot long distance. You know what I mean? Like it was in that game, it was probably only 200 yards, but it felt like 10 miles, right?
Right.
And you could see people way out. It was 64 players online, and that was just unheard of back in those early days. And we're probably talking like 98 or whatever.
1998 you're right.
Yeah. So going pretty far back, I was in college. That was my game. So then from there, I started playing games like Rainbow Six on PC. But back when you would pre-plan the mission,
Yeah,
you
I
actually had to
remember
go
that.
in and pre-plan everything, and then you'd hit execute, and everything would happen.
I
So I
still
used to
have the
play
hard
that.
disk of that sitting here.
Yep. I used to play Microsoft Flight Simulator. I've always been big into flight games. So then Ghost Recon came along. I was already playing Rainbow Six, so I was like, "Oh, this is the perfect game for me. It's big outdoor environments like Delta Force, but it's the people that made Rainbow Six." So started playing Ghost Recon on PC. Really like that. That was definitely my game. Um, it was only when it moved to console um, that I started playing. I think I started playing Summit Strike. It's probably Ghost Recon 2 Summit Strike. And it was definitely a different game. It wasn't, I don't think it was nearly as hard as the first Ghost Recon for PC. But it was a hell of a lot of fun. And you started to see this kind of like new wave of people that were trying to play the game tactically. They would like plan things out or talk before they just ran into battle.
Right.
And this was also the very early days of Xbox Live. So
Yeah.
me and Reaver ended up in a lobby together, and we didn't know each other for shit, but we ended up on the same team, and that kind of started our gaming relationship. And we just had the same kind of mindset and approach to the game, and and I wouldn't even call us the most similar people in the world. We have different personalities and stuff, but we've always kind of worked well together on things.
Right.
I felt like, and if anything, our personalities have changed. Back in the early days, I could be a real asshole, and
So
he was
it's
a
just Cooper.
Has that changed?
pretty chill guy. And now it's kind of switched. I feel like I've gotten a little bit more.
Less of an asshole.
Definitely,
You're gonna
well,
put it?
definitely I'd say
Switch. So
less
Reaver's the asshole now.
less having that edge where Reaver takes up that duty now, and and I mean that in a good way because especially when trying to run a milsim group, there's got to be times if you're really truly trying to keep it legit and keep people on top of their shit, you have to have that person in your group. There's you need that person that's going to push everybody and critique everybody and do
Right.
that. And I do that, but sometimes you have to kind of go hard at it. I hate to say, but at least the best milsim groups I've been a part of have had that person. But anyways, um,
Cooper's
after
experienced
we,
that too. Don't worry.
yeah,
We
and
have
after
far
we,
sight.
yeah, you always have to have that person. But we played Ghost Recon for a long time, and that was really great. And then um, Reaver went into the military, and I got heavily involved in my career and things we were doing, and we stopped playing games for a while. It was a few years, and then I started getting back into Operation Flashpoint. I had played it previously on my own on PC, and I knew it was really cool, but I did not play Armed Assault, which was their next game. I didn't play that at all. But Arma 2 I played pretty heavily, but I joined a couple milsim groups, um, but it was milsim groups that really didn't have their shit together. But I always was saying, man, if me and Reaver ran a group, I think we could run something pretty special. But the problem with Arma, and we talked to Bohemia about this when we interviewed them, is that whether you like it or not, Arma has kind of a high barrier to entry. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it
You
does.
need a good PC, and you can't just have a good PC. You kind of have to have a PC that's set up just right for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you have to. It's not a game that you can have like one foot in, especially if you're going to do modded Arma gameplay. You can't have one foot in it. You got to be both feet in. You got to be fully committed. So it's a hard ask for people, and so it didn't take much convincing to get Reaver to jump on board, but I knew it was going to be like a real investment of like time and resources and stuff. But
Right.
I was pretty certain that this was the game because it really had all the stuff we were looking for. And when he did come on board, I'm pretty sure Arma 3 was out of beta at that point. It was like a full release, if I'm not mistaken. And we started playing, and I created this mission called Operation Jawbreaker. It was like a co-op, milsim mission. And I said, let's do this. And me and him, we didn't have any training or anything. We just played the mission, and we tried to play it milsim style, I guess.
Right.
And it was a hell of a lot of fun. I knew it would be. And then I essentially told him, I said, as fun as this is, it just gets funner the more people that you have.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure there's an upper limit to that because it becomes this whole other thing. But I was like, once you start integrating 3, 4, 5, 8 people, it becomes something pretty special when all the parts and pieces click. So I think when I told him that, when I was like, this is the game that we were looking for, I didn't necessarily mean like the best game in the world because Arma's got issues for sure.
Oh yeah.
Being
But-
Arma is a catchphrase. So
It is. It really is. But what I will say is that it captured the tactics of like Rainbow Six. It had the open world kind of combat of Ghost Recon. It incorporated parts of Flight Simulator or
Yeah.
aerial combat games. And me and Reaver actually, we used to play this game called Over G Fighters a lot on Xbox. I mean, we played the hell out of it.
over what is it called?
Over G Fighters. It's like a fighter jet game. We'd play that shit for hours. And I think it was for Xbox, if I'm not mistaken. Reaver can probably correct me on that.
Yeah,
but-
360.
yeah. And it had every game that we like to play kind of
All
in it,
one.
so to speak. But even on the flip side of that, me and Reaver have spent, if I had to name one other game that has dominated our lives for sure, I mean, I'm talking, I don't even want to know what my playtime in it is because it's probably obscene, would definitely be World of Warcraft. And the good thing is that Arma has aspects of an RPG in it.
Yeah.
Even take a game like Skyrim or Oblivion or Morrowind, any of those type of games or whatever. Arma sort of has some of that in that the game, while you're not collecting things, it's all about inventory and the amount of stuff you have and this giant
the
maps
over-encumbered factor and shit.
Yeah,
Pretty
it's
sure-
almost about being overwhelmed by the amount of content, whether it's land masses, terrain, or the items you can fit in your bags, or how many guns you can choose from. There's still some of that freedom in there, and I think that's why I find that Arma does appeal to people that actually are into RPGs and stuff a little bit. There's a lot of numbers going on behind the scenes, you know what I mean? It's
Right,
not,
yeah.
there's a lot of math involved, so.
And you see them play, they usually jump on like the Altis Life and like
Yeah.
or the Project Life or whatever. Those life mods that have come out. They got some really good stuff in them. I've jumped on
Yeah.
it before. Not really my fancy, as I would say.
Right.
But
But it doesn't. I think with the players of games that are pretty technical in nature, they don't get quite as intimidated by Arma. You know.
Well, there is a lot to Arma. I remember when I
yeah.
first got into Arma, like I was like, just learning the key binding for one took like an actual amount of time. Like, okay, what the fuck? How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I do this? And periodically, even now, it'll be like, all right, we're gonna do this. I'm like, wait, what? What seven keys do I have to stroke to make that happen? What?
Yeah, and the funny thing is I sometimes forget, you know, how hard it is, because since I've been playing since Operation Flashpoint, the weird thing is that Arma 3 controls exactly like as Operation Flashpoint did way back in the day. Even building missions, it's not that different. I mean, the 3D editor obviously is a big deal, the Eden editor, but the core concept of how you build missions, how you set triggers, how you do all that linking and syncing and all that stuff, it's the same as it was Operation Flashpoint, which is why I've been able to adopt it, because I've technically had 10 years of Arma 3 experience now.
Right.
When the next one comes out, though, you know, I'm a little concerned.
Sorry, Buck, I don't have a guitar at all in my house, so he just everyone has a guitar in their background. I've got this chord. Like
you could string that really tightly on something and
that's for
one bass string.
That's for my VR.
Okay.
I don't really want to.
For when you're having virtual furry sex with your weeaboo friends.
That's you. That was the first time you played VR chat. That was you all over.
Viking,
what do you mean?
I'm picturing you as a la Lawnmower Man in like a full-body latex suit with like a sensory overload sort of experience. Is that your VR setup?
Are you sure?
I have full-body tracking.
No, he's naked. He's just naked when he does it. What do you mean?
It's a full nude experience, right?
Yeah.
That's totally it.
I get it.
That's totally what I do.
Dude, me and Vike played VR chat, and it was like,
you got it.
It was a very weird experience.
Really?
Well, for me, it's normal because I think I've put in over 100 hours into that game so far. But Cooper,
my first like 3 hours was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, whoa. And it was funny because he's like, do you want to have like what are they called? Not models.
You get avatars.
So it's like, do you want your avatar to be a girl like every other fucking guy in this game? I'm like, no, that's fucking stupid. Like 20 minutes later, I'm some female character from some game, and he's like, I told you this was gonna happen. I'm like, I went in Rome, bro. I don't know.
And we went into a random world where there was just random people. I didn't even know them, and literally like there was probably 10 guys, and they were all in female avatars. That's VR chat for you.
And talking about like weird shit, and like there's like some anime chick with giant fucking titties that are like have their physics move like more accurately than anything else in the body.
Right.
And Vike's like, oh, come over here. I'm like, oh my god, really? This is what I'm doing.
An inordinate amount of code was supporting those breasts.
He wanted the virtual reality experience in VR chat. I gave him the virtual reality experience in VR chat. That's literally
the boobs were literally a clickable seat for your avatar because the character was huge.
Wow.
So I was sitting in the super physics-based boobs of a giant anime character, and I literally like I'm pretty sure I was like, this is content. This is why I'm here.
Yes,
this is what I'm here for.
You can go probably check out all that adventure back on Cooper's YouTube channel.
Yeah. But it was just like I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't that. Like I don't know. It was just I've seen so many videos and stuff, but you sold.
You sold me. I'm gonna sign right up.
That's gonna be Dagger's third game in his list.
Yes.
Yeah. We're never gonna see him in Sea of Thieves again. Where are you? Nowhere.
Yeah.
His wife tries to come in. Why is the door locked? Don't come in here.
Right.
Don't.
That's a great game when you find people to actually play with though. Like I have a lot of mates in there who make their own custom avatars, and like the details that they go into is great, and they make memes out of them too. Like they just have fun with it, and there's just got some great stuff. God, it reminds me of the time when one of my mates came into my Arma server as a full nude chick. I won't say any more on that.
What?
That's what Buck just said.
Well,
oh my god!
I haven't done any. You know what? I haven't done anything VR yet. I've at work. I'm actually working on some augmented reality stuff, some AR stuff. But
AR is pretty cool.
Yeah, but I haven't got to mess around with any VR. I think the new didn't they just release a new headset like that's even more upgraded now? Was
Yeah,
it
Yeah,
HTC or somebody?
the
yeah,
HTC
HTC
Pro something.
2.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, whatever it is. Apparently it's not as good as the first one though.
Oh wow.
That's what I've heard.
So I'm kind of in that position where I was like, well, I'm not going to buy the first round of gear because I'm going to see how it goes, let them work out problems. And now I just find myself in that place where I'm like, well, I
Should have
don't
bought the
know when
first
I
one.
should jump in, but sometime in the future.
Well, as you can see,
So have you ever used it at all?
Yeah, have you used
Um,
virtual reality?
So I teach some classes at the art college here, and the students were working on their thesis, and a lot of them did VR stuff. And
Right.
that school has has a really nice VR setup. So I've used theirs. I've checked it out. I got to mess around in what game was it? I think Skyrim, the
Yeah, it's
VR
good.
Skyrim and stuff. So
I
I've
have
checked
that.
it out, but not long enough. I don't feel like I've done it long enough to feel like I'm like immersed into the world.
Right.
You know what
See,
I mean?
my goggles are right there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There you go.
Mine are somewhere in my room here.
Yeah.
I have the HTC Vive, the first one, the very first one that came out. Cost me a pretty penny to get it. Don't get me wrong.
What, $700?
But it's been well for me it's more like 1,200. But
Oh, but I guess you got it when it came out, right?
yeah.
Well,
But
this headset here was $900. You can buy it now for like $250.
yeah.
Oh wow.
But I got it like day one, right? So like I've had
Yeah.
it for
So,
years, but
I found that I've put most of what I've spent into that VR headset with the other VR games that came out. Like my favorite still, and it's been out for ages, is a hot dog horseshoes, the hand grenades. Literally, you don't do anything other than shoot guns. And the guy that makes it now, actually, people that make models, like they send them to him and say, "Do you want to put this in your game?" And he goes, "Yeah, but I'm going to tweak it a little bit just so it like suits the game." And
Right.
like, so there's so much content still being added, like so many different guns and stuff. Just that's all it is. It's just you're shooting targets. There's
Yeah.
nothing.
well, so like I as I said, I spent a shitload of money on this, and at the time, of course, I'm like, okay, I guess we're doing this. If you asked me today, I would do it again, just based on the stuff that I've done, like just all the games that I've played. Like playing the new Resident Evil in VR was one of the most terrifying experiences of my fucking life, and I
Yeah.
loved it. It was great.
So is it
Skyrim,
fully? Would you say it's fully effective then? Do you feel like you're in the environment?
Yeah.
When it depends on the game, because sometimes the games embody like some of the stylistic games I find don't as much, because you can't see yourself in like a cartoon world. But when it's sort of like again like Skyrim, if you play like 5 hours straight of Skyrim, you get off and you're like, holy fuck, I'm not in Skyrim. Whoa, this
Yeah.
is weird. Or like you get out of when I'm playing Resident Evil, I'm like, okay, I'm not about to get murdered. Like it does put you there when the game tries to put you
Yeah.
there. Other experiences
thought it-
are cool because you're in it, but it's not as immersive if it's not like trying to be real.
Because I have the full body tracking, which are just these little trackers that you put on your body. They're probably about this big, and they just you strap them to your body. Have 3 on you. You have 1 around your waist and 2 on your feet, and so you just
We can pelvic thrust and it
Yeah.
actually works.
Yeah, it actually works. And it works mostly in VR chat, and I've actually found myself like, because I'm sitting down in the game, and like my body's actually sitting down the way that I'm sitting down. It feels more like I'm actually there than it does than normal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it just I lay down on my couch once and fell asleep in the VR. Woke up in the VR, surrounded by all these people, because it was just fucking me by myself when I fell asleep, and then people joined me as I was there. And
This also helps add to the
yeah, to the
Experience.
Oh, is that the yeah? So now that's the PlayStation one, right?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Now, could you play any PlayStation game in VR? It's only.
So you can play any PlayStation game in VR, but if the game doesn't support VR, you use the same camera angles, but it's like your entire screen now.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you're playing, like a good example is Monster Hunter World,
Yeah.
because what happens is when you go into VR, when you put it on the VR, it's not a VR supported game. So when you turn your head, it doesn't turn with you. It's almost like you're in a movie theater playing your game.
Yeah.
But it puts the camera at your character, so when you're fighting a giant monster, you actually get to see how big they actually are in comparison to you.
Would you say it's like Track IR then, essentially? So if I turn my head,
Yeah.
the
you
view
can
Yeah.
changes, but the screen,
you can
the
Correct.
static screen doesn't. Okay.
This is cool.
Correct, yeah, so it's like
you
that.
can actually use the HTC Vive as a tracker for like if you're using like Track IR and stuff, you can actually.
Sure.
And I don't obviously
Can you really?
have it. Yeah, apparently you can. So you just have it like if I have a cap on, and then I set it on the cap, you can still use it as a tracker for your head.
Okay.
You just need the track. Oh no, because I guess
No, you don't even. No, you don't even need that.
Yeah.
You just need a webcam, and it just tracks
Yeah.
that piece of equipment. And
Because I feel like I would love to play like Red Dead with the like Track IR ability.
yeah,
You know, I
Right.
don't know if I necessarily need the entire VR experience, but I would love to in any game where there's like a lot of vistas like that, and it's all about your environment. I'd love to be able to like
just look
constantly turn my head and look around.
Well, and with a VR headset on a non-VR game, that's how it works.
Well,
Okay.
I've played Arma in VR before. It's a little program you have to run. There's a couple of programs you have to run for it to actually work. You can't play online though, which makes it like totally useless to me.
Right.
Well, because if I could play it in real life, like as you guys were all playing a mission, I could be in the VR playing it. That'd be cool. But
Right.
obviously, so I used it a couple of times, and it is just so hard to get used to. It took me like probably half an hour just to get used to where the keyboard is on the
Yeah.
desk.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I'm looking around, and then I've still got to turn around and look behind me to see if there's shit behind me, and then
Yeah.
turn my character around, and it's like it's not really working. It's a bit
Yeah,
janky.
I played Monster Hunter World. I played Battlefield 1 with the VR on. That shit was insane. Like it was like just because the game's fast paced and just shit has explosions and buildings collapsing. Like,
Yep.
and again, it's not when I turn my head, my whole thing doesn't change, but it is that sort of here's my camera so I can pan around. It makes it more
Yeah.
difficult almost because instead of the screen being here, it's like right there.
You have to search for things. Yeah.
Well, exactly.
Yep.
So, and I played a sports game like that as well, just again, so I could kind of like focus on something as opposed to having to look at the whole screen. Like, I don't give a shit what the stands are doing. Like, it almost makes it so you can choose what part of the screen you care about.
Yeah.
So that's why I like to use Monster Hunter as the example, because when I'm standing there in the game, I'm like, oh, that monster's huge, but it's different when I'm looking up going like, holy shit, like, this thing is actually huge. If I was standing here, this thing is massive, and I can actually see that to scale now because I put these goggles on.
Yeah. Exactly. That's cool. And I mean, again, I think that to some games, sounds like Monster Hunter. I think definitely, I felt like Skyrim, at least when I played it, the ability to be able to do that, I think, affected gameplay in a positive way. You know what I mean? Because again, you're seeing
Absolutely.
the entire creature and stuff. You know, you're not getting that old RPG trope where you're fighting the big end boss, but all you ever see is its toenail. You know, you can actually take in everything.
And they did add stuff, so like instead of just I hit block and you put your sword or your shield up, you have to block where they come into their swing. But also added a lot of cool elements because like in Skyrim the game, you click a button and you do this like it's like a night assassination. Like if you creep up on somebody, you're not detected, and you click like whatever it is, square or whatever on a sleeping enemy, you basically just slit their throat and they're dead. It's like an instant kill.
Right.
But in VR, you gotta actually creep up, take out your knife, and go like, it's just more immersive because you actually have to do the action as opposed to it just happening.
Yeah.
Or like if you're sitting at the bar, instead of just your character sitting at the bar, whatever, you've got the drink in your hand, you can like pat your homies on the, like it's you're there. And
Right.
I think Skyrim is probably, in my mind, the most ambitious of all the VR projects that have come out because I've played Skyrim probably 500 to 1,000 hours, and I've played the special edition, I've played it on Switch, I've played it it's come out about 1 billion times, and I've played it
Come out on the fridge,
about
didn't
all of them. It's come out in a
Came
lot
out
of
on-
shit.
Came out on the Amazon device. And
Yeah, I have that. It's a text to speech game. Anyway,
I can't get that here. It sucks.
but when I played it in VR, a lot of times when you play games in VR, like even Resident Evil is a good example of it. You can play it and it's scary, but when you put the VR goggles on, you instantly notice a visual degradation to make sure that the VR works.
Yeah, because
Skyrim.
they've got to have it running above 60 frames. They're nearly 90 frames a second. That's why
Right.
I see
Because
most
it moves,
games
yeah.
take the
With a
drop.
high refresh rate. Yeah.
That's because, yeah, obviously if it's lagging, like VR chat does it a lot if you're joining a world with someone that's playing an animation that just slows your computer down. You notice it and you have to take your headset off because you're like, oh, that fucking hurts. 'Cause it's like right on your face, so...
But with Skyrim, and I think to the credit of it, it's because Skyrim is kind of an older game, so they didn't have to do a whole lot. But the Skyrim that I play on my PS4 Pro and the Skyrim that I play in my VR feel the exact same. They didn't have to take anything out. Whereas you look at the exact same company, Bethesda, who made Fallout VR. which was hypothetically the same sort of shit, it was a shitstorm and it was a disaster. Like, it fell apart. It was terrible. The draw distance was so low. Everything was awful.
Yeah,
and then I plugged in Skyrim, and it was like, I don't know how to play Skyrim in any other way now because of how immersive and how good they did it.
Yeah.
And like, I was really disappointed with the Fallout 4 VR because I was actually kind of keen to see what it'd be like.
I was too.
Mini nuke someone in the middle, in the distance, while you fucking standing there as a fucking dickhead. Like,
it was shit. It was just broken.
There was a lot
of. I'm sure a lot of that goes to just like how the game's coded and all that, a million different things. So.
But you'd think that the newer engined Fallout 4 would be easier to work with than the 2012 engine from Skyrim, but they
didn't.
You'd
think so. But again, that's the thing with those engines is that they're only as good as the user.
Technically, it's the same engine, though. By the way.
But they're only as good as how well organized the artists or the animator or the modeler, whoever, how well they use the tool, how efficient they are, all that stuff. It's a million different things. I mean, my job is VFX for film and television and stuff like that, and I can tell you that there's projects that I'll do next week using newer software and better software that should be better than a movie I worked on 10 years ago. But they're not. they're going to be a shit show. And again, it just all comes down. The tools are better, but it's just who's working on it, how it's organized, how that production is handled. So,
I think with Fallout 2, they because it was a newer game, they had a lot more pressure, and they wanted it to be a Vive exclusive. So I think it was supposed to be like you could buy it with the bundle, like you could buy the thing it came with the big bundle or whatever. It was kind of like a selling point. And I think internally to them, it got rushed, stuff got skipped to make sure that it could be. I think they had a deadline they couldn't meet, and what we got was what was ready. Whereas the Skyrim VR, it took them. They announced it, and it came out like literally years later. They're like, "Hey, VR's a thing. We're gonna make Skyrim VR eventually." Whereas with Fallout, it was like, "We're gonna release it with the Vive Pro when that comes out," which gave them a hard deadline.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Elder Scrolls series in general, at least from what I can tell over the past, 7-8 years, that seems to be the series that they don't rush as much as Fallout. I always felt like Fallout, there was like this schedule that exists, and they got to release a Fallout game at a certain time. I don't think this has anything to do with it, by the way, but I always thought I always had a theory that maybe it had something to do with like the licensing rights or something, or distribution rights, and how that worked. But
they own Fallout. They totally own it
rights now, right? So
there was 8 years between 3 and 4.
Was there? Wow, I didn't realize it was that long.
It was 8 years.
They had New Vegas.
I think maybe it's just because it gets released. Yeah, maybe it's because it gets released on like a lot of platforms, or there's all
it gets re-released a lot.
There's like the anniversary edition, the collector's edition, the collection that you get all the DLC and add-ons, right? So it feels like it constantly is coming out.
But to be fair, Elder Scrolls is like that too. Like, think about it. Skyrim came out on the PS3. I owned it on the PS3, the PS4. Then I owned it the Pro edition, special edition. Then VR, then Switch, and then Alexa. For fuck's sakes.
Yeah.
They released the game like 9 times.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now that I think about it, it seems like a lot longer. I feel like maybe it's just because I don't know why. Actually, it feels like Skyrim released. When did Skyrim release? Was that like 5 years ago or something?
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Oh no, Skyrim was literally like I was in high school when that game came out. So
okay,
2011.
2011. Wow, shit. Yeah, okay, right. So we're pushing up 8 years now.
Push out another sort of version of it like every year or two. Or it gets because it came out so it came out on 3 and 4. And then when the PS4 Pro came out, they came out with like a special edition that enhanced it to 4K graphics. Yeah. They have it for Switch, they have it for VR, they have it for PC, and that didn't come out at the same time. And they have the talk to speech adventure Skyrim for so they have 7 versions in the last 8 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That version didn't come out for me. I'm being serious. It
was a joke. It was sort of a joke. Like they used it because they were making a joke. Yeah, they were saying like, "Oh yeah, you guys make fun of us for Skyrim coming out all the time." It was like a mock commercial, and then at the end he's like, "By the way, we did actually make that. It's a real thing."
Of course,
but it's only in America.
Speaking about leveraging your IP to make more money.
Yeah, really, yeah. Hey, Bohemia, Bethesda.
I
You
know.
guys even sound similar, man. Like,
Yeah, there's 2 versions on PC. But we're talking about Bethesda and that too much. My favorite. I watched a video with Farside the other day. We watched the Fall of 76, which is done
I
by
saw that. I
which
watched
is a
that.
guy that did. His name's Internet Historian. I recommend watching it. It's like
He's
half an
great.
hour of the best time of your life. It is so funny.
I'll have to check it out. Yeah.
It's good.
We won't watch it on the
But it
stream
shows
'cause
a lot
is
of the
half an hour.
actual
Yeah, but
reasons why
he
Fallout
does. He
76 kind of fell flat.
Yeah,
Sure.
he researches it and goes, this is why this stuffed up and this is why this stuffed up, and he shows you everything that's going on. But he makes it like it's funny, and he has so many videos that are like that. He blew up really quickly, that dude.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, you watch.
I'll have to
only got,
check
like,
it out.
I think he's only got like 30 videos out in the past 2 years.
Oh, I didn't even think he has that many. But it's not important. He's given very few videos.
Yeah,
But
definitely watch it. It's blowing up. It's like at 6 million views or something already.
Oh shit! Yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah,
I don't. But see, on the devil's advocate side, 'cause Fallout 76
a good
fell
idea,
flat.
bad presentation.
Yeah.
But I don't even know. I don't. So I'm a pretty big fan of the Fallout series as a whole. Like when Fallout 76 came out, for example, I took the week off of work and I played it all fucking week. That's all I did. Like I was all in. I had literally I was in the pre-alpha testing with Bethesda. Like I had to sign NDAs and shit to couldn't talk about the game. Like I knew this whole thing was coming through and how it was going to be. So seeing it from kind of it just stands up to when it was released, seeing the community, it was hard for me to be able to say what you guys are expecting is not what's coming. But but I think a lot of people didn't like it, not because it was garbage, but because the expectation of what it was supposed to be. Like me knowing what it was coming from months ahead of time, when it launched, I was stoked and I played it all week, and I still play it periodically. I actually enjoy the game, but it's because it was exactly what I was expecting, and my expectations were where it's at. I wasn't expecting
games
the fucking
now
moon.
evolve too. I mean, it's it very rarely is the game that releases the game that you're going to be playing a year from now.
Look at No Man's Sky, right?
Exactly. Yeah, No Man's Sky. That's a game that I've now repurchased on
It's really
PC,
good now.
and it's really, really good now. It is a really amazing game. Yeah.
Except
I liked it.
they
I liked it when it
took
came
a while
out,
to
but I
get there now.
knew.
Well,
I liked it when it came out, but I knew that it was lacking stuff.
Yeah.
But it's funny because 2 years later they
didn't
had
think it'd be
the
lacking.
next update or whatever,
Yeah.
and it was the game that they were promising 2 years before. So
they released.
I think Red Dead Online is going to be that same type of thing.
Yeah.
I've heard rumors already that it's starting to
Kinda
feel
shit.
better and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of games like that. I mean, Arma was like that too when it first came out. There was nothing. They didn't have anything, and
They
it
just
felt
had
like
the
a
vanilla
half a game.
assets, and
Yeah.
that was it.
And there wasn't that many of those. So you have to. I feel like with a lot of games now, there's a patience factor. Even take a Rockstar game. They're a company. I used to
talking to the bloke. It's Rockstar. When will VR stuff be affordable? I said no.
Yeah. I used to work right underneath Rockstar in Manhattan, and I always thought they were kind of interesting company because they would put so much effort into a game, like a lot of game studios, and they'd release it, and it would be so good. But even a company like Rockstar, with their massive coffers of money and all that, they can get one part of the game right, but still the next part's going to be a 2 or 3 year,
right, yeah,
patience, inducing, wait fest, so like with Grand Theft Auto 5 was amazing, but Grand Theft Auto Online took forever. Same thing with Red Dead, and you would have think before Red Dead came out, people were going, oh, it's going to be great. They've learned from all the mistakes of GTA. I was one of those people. I was right along with them.
I knew it was going to be a disaster.
And GTA Online got a lot better though. Once you found the people to play with and stuff.
Oh, it's amazing today, but when it first came out, for the first probably year, it was unplayable.
Yeah,
it was fucked.
And if you, in our conversations with Bohemia, that's why they really heavily stress that Arma, whether this is marketing or not. I don't think it is. I think it's pretty legit, but they never call it like a game or anything. They call it a platform, and you'll find a lot of companies calling it that now because
or like a service.
Yeah, because it's going to be an investment for them over, I don't know, however many years, 5 to 8 years or whatever, and that investment is something you almost got to sign up for and be a part of, or You know,
Well, and
you're going to be
Destiny's a
constantly
good
disappointed.
Destiny's a good thing of that, where they come out with Destiny 1, whether you like it or hate it. Again, I personally love the fucking game. A lot of people hate it. I love it.
Yeah.
But when the first game came out, Bungie was like, just so you know, we have the funding. Destiny is going to be a minimum 10-year franchise.
Yeah.
Buckle up.
Yeah. And you know, for some game franchises, people are going to they're going to have you know, kind of that first impression thing where they play it or they experience it and they're like, done with this shit. I'm never going to play it again. I'm like that with some games, and then some games, for some reason, I'm a lot more forgiving, and I'll you know, I will stick with. And I don't know, you know, why I do that sometimes with games. Destiny's a perfect example. That was a game where I totally played. You know, I bought it for day one, I believe. I bought it because I was a big Halo fan, obviously. So made sense. I was like, of course, this is going to be a great game. And after about you know, 2 weeks of just not really liking it, I never touched it again. I mean, never opened it. Even Reaver had told me, oh, it's gotten better. Or he may have told me Destiny 2 was better. I can't remember. But either way, I just was like, well, I even knew. I was like, I'll never play this game again. And, it's unfortunate, but I get like that in my mindset. I'm sure a lot of people do as well. But then again, there's other games that I'm like super patient with, like No Man's Sky. That's a game that I bought yet again, you know.
So I was like that with Dark Souls. I dropped that. Yeah. I played Dark Souls 1, got really angry at it, and I'm not one to like slam my shit or get angry at games. I threw a PS4 controller straight at the ground in anger, and it broke one of the handle things on it. And I looked down and I was like, that controller costs more than this game. Fuck Dark Souls. I'm never playing any of these games ever again. And I've never played any of those games again. Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. It's just I think that's kind of the thing with games now. And as I've gotten older, you know, especially at 40 years old now, with my limited time, I think that's another reason why I have to pick a game that I feel really confident that it is going to be good, and I stick with that game and I don't deviate very much, you know.
That's why we don't put Armor down.
Yeah, don't put Armor down. But even Sea of Thieves, if you use that as an example, when me and Reaver, it was funny. We called each other up one day. I think I was leaving work, and we both asked the same question at the same moment. We said, hey, you want to try out Sea of Thieves? And we had never talked about it before. We just both randomly had this idea one day. And we played it, and the whole time we were playing it, we were going, I wish it had this. I wish it had that.
It was a little empty to start.
It felt very
bad at it.
Yeah, but I straight up knew. I was like, this will be a great game.
Yeah.
This will be a great game. I just knew, you know. I never felt bad about buying it. Even though I stopped playing it for a while, it still felt like a solid purchase. So, you know, when he said that he was starting to play it again, I was like, yeah, I don't really have a burning desire to play it right now, but I'll play. And today was my first day playing in quite a while, and I'm sure now I'll start playing it a lot again. You know, it's just that type of thing.
We did like a Skull Fort, and we did some stuff.
We talk about Sea of Thieves nearly every single time we have a podcast.
We do.
We talked about it last week. We talked about it the week before because it's gotten so much better. Me and Cooper have obviously played it a lot, and if you haven't seen our adventure, go check it out on Cooper's channel again. Another shout out #promo.
Hey, we did one for Reaver last time. We did one for Reaver in one of the games. It's funny. I don't know if you watched that part, but you're like, oh, you know, #promotion, Twitch Reaver, and then you're like, well, he's gonna cut that out of the video, and I just put like, no, I'm not.
I remember that. And then I think Reaver was talking about that a couple of days later, still after getting that out. But that was magic. But
did someone say magic? Don't bring that up. God damn it, Reaver! Don't say magic. We'll start talking about Sea of Thieves and magic are like the two things that we just never. It's like a staple of our podcast. We always talk about it. I don't understand how it always gravitates. It doesn't matter who's on. Doesn't matter what we're talking about. Someone's like, so yeah, I saw a pirate movie, and we're like, Sea of Thieves, right? Like, it's just like complete.
I saw a magic trick, and I'm like, hey, Coop, I got this new card the other day for the magic.
Yeah, exactly. But if we're gonna talk about actually something,
we're not talking about magic.
No, not magic. In Sea of Thieves, they updated it. You can grab people out of the tentacles with the harpoons now, and they fixed a bunch of shit. We actually did the first tall tale with Dagger today. He hadn't done any of the stuff, so we went and did him with that.
I did the first one with Reaver and his wife as well, just to get them started on it.
Well, and then we got Dagger started today.
Yeah. It was the first time I played the game on a mouse and keyboard too, so it really took a while to get used to it. I have always played on the Xbox
way
controller.
better.
Yeah.
It's funny this week. So I played it like only on Xbox for, like I probably have a lot of hours. Like I probably have a couple 100 hours into Sea of Thieves, and I would say 98% of it or 95% of it was on the Xbox, and I never played it on the PC. And I got the Game Pass for the Xbox Game Pass specifically to play Sea of Thieves on the PC to see if it would be a difference. My Game Pass expires in 2 weeks, so what I did is I brought my physical copy of Sea of Thieves to EB Games, traded it in for credit, got a gift card, an Xbox gift card for the exact value of the Sea of Thieves, came back and bought it on the PC, because when you buy it on PC, you also have it for the Xbox. So I basically spent like an extra $20 to get it for both, but I did that like literally Thursday. I was like, no, this is going to expire, and I don't give a shit about anything else in the Game Pass. It was literally just for Sea of Thieves. It was a test to see if it was worth the switch. I'm like, I gotta do this. So like Thursday, I rebought Sea of Thieves.
We have to do it one day where we get like 2 or 3 ships going, because there's enough people that play it that actually.
Now there is. I didn't realize there were so many people. I thought it was just us, and then every time we talk about it, someone's like, "Yeah, I play Sea of Thieves," and everybody seems to say that.
Reva came to one of our podcasts a while back and said, "Hey, I play Sea of Thieves. Hit me up next time." And we said, "Sure, download it." Took 2 weeks to download it, but hey,
and his wife likes playing it too, so that helps. When your wife likes playing the game, that does help.
We had some fun. Like
you don't have to navigate the domestic stuff generally.
It was just us 3, and they had the kids running around them at the same time. So I'm like, yeah, this is fun.
I'm pretty sure there was a poopy disaster today during Reaver's. I'm pretty sure there was feces somewhere.
Yeah, see, my wife does not play video games at all, so generally my playtime is limited when the family clocks out for the night.
Yeah.
Right. You just don't sleep?
Same with a lot of people.
I really don't, no.
Attaboy.
Yeah.
I want to get my gaming in. I'm going to get my fix,
I have to. I have to. I try to explain to my wife, I'm like, this is like how I stress relief, you know?
Yeah.
So right now, my wife left on a trip, so that's why I was gaming in the middle of the day today, and not.
Yeah, you did make a comment. You're like, man, I never do this, man. Like,
no, I never do it.
You day players, or you gave a name. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing is that even though I really only game from like 9 p.m., 9:30 on to like 1 or 2 in the morning, that's a packed couple of hours, and so I hate to be like this sometimes when we get on, even for 111. It's kind of like, okay, I need things to happen like now.
Right.
It's like I try to schedule things and stuff because again, the playtime's limited. You know, I think once my kid gets a little older, it's going to be easier. She's 3 right now though, so she don't let me do anything.
Sea of Thieves by the time they get
older. Exactly.
Well, it looks like a game that like someone like just getting over maybe the age of 10 would really enjoy. It's like the cartoony type game, but it's and it's
well. And they've actually, and it's funny you say that because it also kind of loops into that conversation we were just having. In that Rare, the people who make Sea of Thieves, hadn't really come out with anything big in a long time, and when they dropped Sea of Thieves, they were like, love it or hate it, we're committed to this, and we're going to be making Sea of Thieves for a long time. Yeah. This is kind of our flagship service game. You're going to pay for updates and shit, but this is the game we're going to stick in. So
and. You know, they were a studio too. I guess they were owned by Microsoft for a while there, right? And then, or they first Nintendo. Then I think Microsoft bought them, and then they kind of went back to being an independent studio. And I think this is like their big, independent studio project.
Exactly. So. Yep. This is their lone game. This is only Rare. They're the only ones doing it, and this is their push. So.
And that's our Sea of Thieves talk done for the day.
There you go.
As we always talk about it, we need new games to talk about. There's like. Have you played Mordhau yet?
Which game?
Mordhau.
Jesus, okay, I don't think you realize that you have a fucking accent, and every time you say that, it sounds so dumb.
It's
like you tell me the game, and I'm like, now that I know what you're saying, but like when he was like, hey, do you play this game? It took me literally like 4 times. I was like, type it out. I don't know what the fuck you're trying to tell me. Like,
right.
I don't understand what you're telling me right now. Like,
it's a game.
Mordhau?
Yeah, it's in the chat. So in the
No, I know now, but I remember just being like, Jesus Christ, bro, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And then Farsight starts saying it. I'm like, you also have an accent. You're not helping. Like,
no, but we're
just have a
saying
North American tell me
it's
the name of this game, please.
It's Mord, Mord, and then how,
Okay.
H-A-U, which sounds weird because it's H-A-U, not H-O-W. It's a great game. It's honestly, it's like it become really popular. I don't know if you've noticed it on Steam at all or anything.
The more and more I hear about it, the more like I saw it and it kind of just like looked like a new Chivalry game.
And it is.
Yeah,
But it
that's
looks
what I'm
smooth.
seeing.
Like it looks way better though, and everyone keeps telling me because I'm.
Oh yeah, it looks really cool.
I'm like it's a full product priced game, so I'm kind of like, do I really? I don't know enough about it. I'm not invested in a series enough to spend $60 on it. But every time I talk to literally anybody about it, they're like jerking off over it. Like they fucking love the game. So like,
Dude,
Right.
it's great. Dude, when you can grab a scythe in just we play me and Farsight play it a lot. We usually do horde mode, which is just you've just got to survive against endless waves of enemy until like a certain level, and you just buy the equipment that's laying around with the gold that you earn. But you can literally you get a scythe, which is just what you'd use to cut wheat and shit back in medieval time, and you can cut people's heads off in one swing. That you can literally.
Well, the violence seems super realistic, like where you cut and like when you bash someone's head with like a morning star, you see a fucking concaved crack into their skull. Like it looks visceral as fuck.
Yeah, and I think that's what sells people in the game is like when you cut people's heads off in that game and you see it rolling around on the ground, you feel satisfied that you did that. It's gruesome as fuck, but you feel
you
satisfied.
sadist.
But when you get a scythe and you just swing it to the left and you just go like that across 3 people and you cut all 3 heads off, it's the most satisfying feel that you just did that in one swing.
And I think that you kind of mentioned it, like with it being a full price game. I think honestly that's another big reason why I don't play tons and tons of games anymore. Is just that like
pay for the investment.
I have such a well, because every company kind of treats these games as like these platform investments that they're gonna work on for 10 years, and you need to be along for the ride. Now it sort of does feel like you're paying, $60 to be a beta tester or an alpha tester in some way. So it has to really be a game that grabs me for me to be able to spend any money on it nowadays.
Well, that's why I'm having a problem with this, because it's like it's cool and stuff, and everyone keeps telling me it's great, but like it's not something I was waiting for, or I was anticipating, or whatever. Right. It's kind of like, so I'm wrestling with that $60-$70 purchase. Am I going to play it enough to make that worth it? Which is why, I just told you about, I know we're not going to talk about Sea of Thieves, but about that whole like buying it and then bringing it back. That was because I was so on the fence about buying it that it was on sale. The physical copy was on sale for like $40. So I'm going to buy this to see if I care, because I don't know enough. And I'm not going to spend the $60-$70 to buy it brand new. But I have the opportunity to try it basically for cheaper. Yeah. But if Sea of Thieves was at full price, I don't know if and again, I love the game and we talk about it all the fucking time. I don't know if I would have gotten it if it was full price at that time.
Yeah.
Which it's almost a barrier for some people in that sense of like, imagine that Mordau game was $30. Your consideration on buying that game, I would have bought it already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it was like 30 or
if it was like $35, I'd be playing it with you later today. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to swallow that $70 pill when you know that the juice, the meat and potatoes of the game is 8 months from now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some of these games too, it's like I have to look at, do I have the time to invest? Like, am I 100% sure I have the time to invest in it? DCS, Digital Combat Simulator, was a game that I actually really like, and I would play the hell out of it because it's like the Arma of jet, flying games. I'd play the hell out of it, but but it's not cheap. I mean, each map is like $60, and then a single jet can be like $100.
That? Hang on. So if we go to the DCS store on
Steam.
I
was just like, even though I know this is a good game, I know it would be fun, I cannot pay that amount of money because it would mean I'd have to stop playing Arma because I only have so many hours in the day,
Right. It's not, and that's the sort of thing. It's not even necessarily about the money. Like, I've got $70. I'm not going to go hungry because I buy this game. But it's about the cost investment ratio on buying the game. Like, is it $70 worth?
So here's DCS. DCS is a free-to-play game, but because you're buying all the planes and stuff, there are 66 different add-ons to this game, where there's planes and maps and stuff, and like campaigns and stuff. The total amount for that in Australian dollars is $2,699.04.
Are you fucking kidding?
For all the DLC that comes with DCS.
And it's really I think it's centered around the amount of detail. I mean, like, for example, I think their F-14 or F-18 module just for that jet, just that one piece of content, that one jet is so detailed. It's probably the same amount of data and work time to develop it as like a full scale Skyrim.
Right, I'm sure,
like, it's crazy.
it makes sense, but it's
but
hard to
to
swallow.
even learn those systems, you know what I mean? To even learn those systems, it's like you can't play that game for like an hour a week. It's just not going to happen.
It's our Arma, basically.
It's a full commit, you know?
Yeah.
So,
but how long that game? Don't forget, it's also been out since 2013, and I would definitely get more. It's a VR game, so I'd love to get into it more. Yeah. But I need to
stop playing Arma.
Stop playing.
Right.
Just stop playing.
Quit your job.
I need to get. Yeah. I would have to personally get a joystick and stuff to play it because in VR.
Do I have all that shit?
Trying to use, I have it, but it just won't work on this for some reason.
Oh shit.
But there's a lot of games like that though. Like
there is.
EVE Online is another game.
Oh god.
Like that, and I actually really like technical games. That's I think partially what attracts me to Arma and a lot of RPGs. I love that stuff and like the depth. But again, I can only really commit to one at a time because they're just too much.
Well, EVE is so much to swallow, man. Like you start it up and you're like, this is a second life for me now.
I would start going back into Elite Dangerous if it worked. For some reason, my Elite Dangerous has just fucking destroyed my computer for some reason every time I launch it. But I loved it because you could sit there. I have a joystick and thrusters for it, and fucking because you can play it in VR. And when you play it in VR, it is a completely different experience. And I can't play it normally now because I've played it so much in VR. And that's just...
Well, it's like me in Skyrim. I can't go back.
Yeah. So, just like... Because obviously, going back to VR, in the perspective of things, the VR makes some games better and some games worse. For Elite Dangerous, it makes it better because you are just this guy sitting in a chair, which is fine. You're not doing really anything other than flying. But then you also need, unless you memorize the fuck out of your keyboard, you need a joystick and shit like that.
Do you not get motion sickness from playing a flight game like that?
I don't get motion sickness because of other games that I play that are just used to moving around a lot without actually moving in real life.
Well, I don't have a problem with that. Like Skyrim, I'm standing in spot. I'm not actually moving, and I can move around the world perfectly fine. I play the fact that you're like upside down, but in real life you're not upside. Like I played Valkyrie, which is like a space game.
When you've got to remind yourself that it's space and there is no up and down.
Yeah, but it fucks me up because I'm sitting when I can feel gravity coming down on me, and it's the locomotion. My brain is telling me that I'm sitting in a chair with gravity, but I'm upside down, floating backwards in space. Yeah. And it doesn't really affect me, but I noticed that it's only happened on this one game, Valkyrie, the like space fighting game. But I realized after that I was playing it, I took the headset off and I felt fine, and I kind of stood up and went to go walk, and I was like, ooh, I feel weird now. Like I didn't feel sick, but I felt like almost uncomfortable having gravity or whatever. Like you know what I mean? Like it was weird. My body hadn't like clicked back into reality yet.
Okay, when you're talking about it that way, for the first time that I actually played it, I took the VR headset off and I had to actually sit there in my chair for probably a couple of minutes just watching a YouTube video. Like I just gotta relax there.
You gotta recenter yourself back into the reality.
I died during a flight combat against like tons of other ships, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna have a break now. So I took off my VR and I'm like, okay, just sit there for a moment, because when you're playing like Elite Dangerous, you are spinning around a lot, and you're you might be looking at one object here and following it, but your ship is still moving, makes your body feel like you're moving. And there are times where you are like moving around a lot too, because you're just like, you're sitting there and you're just like, well, why the fuck am I moving? I'm not actually doing anything.
Well, they have the thing. So, like, some people get motion sickness from the fact that you're sitting on a couch or standing, and you're using a joystick or a con or whatever you're using to move forward, but your body's not moving forward. That is one type of thing that people in VR get, but you overcome that quickly if you use VR semi-often. The flying thing is something that takes a little bit longer to get used to, and that is actually the exact reason. Like locomotion is actually the name of it, and it's this thing in your ear that kind of gives the equilibrium to your body of motion. So like it's your spatial, like your hand is right here because this sort of I know where I am in space and time, and when the message is going to your brain, telling you that you're in fucking space, but when you reach out, you're holding your jug of Five Alive. It fucks with your perception a little bit. You know what I mean? But it's that's the reason as to why that is. It's the locomotion disassociation, but it's a weird thing that I'm sure as humans we use VR in AR a lot more.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're gonna get used to that. Like I used this thing. I think it was Microsoft actually. It was like a operating system like Windows 10 AR though. So you're sitting at your desk, you have a screen in front of you with like your computer, but you have these like goggles on. They kind of look like just like ski goggles almost. And what happens is you can have programs and Word documents and shit off your screen that are still related. So you could click and drag off of your screen into the air and it goes off into nothing. So I could have a Word document floating in the air here from my goggles, and I could use my hand and like move stuff like fucking Iron Man shit.
Right.
But it was really cool because that's what it reminded me of. Like I wanted to throw something out, so I literally grabbed it and just did that into the garbage can, and in a garbage can of the program. I'm like, this is insane, and I was able to use that through my work. So I thought that was really cool, and I think the more and more we get pushed into that sort of direction, because I feel like we will, it's far less. That'll go away. The negative side effects to us will probably diminish as we use them more often.
I just want Arma 3 to work in VR, okay? I just want to be able to sit there and hold my gun like this with the controllers and just shoot people like that. Yeah, like that.
Well, you never know. Arma 4, that may be what's in store for us.
If that isn't a thing in the future, I would be very upset. It would work.
Arma 4 VR would be... But they've got games kind of like... They have this game called Operation something.
I have a lot of games called Operation with something on the end of it.
Right.
It's okay. So it's a VR game that really reminds me of something like Counter-Strike, but it's a lot more tactical because it's a VR game. It's not the one that is exactly like Counter-Strike. It's its own separate thing, but it's really tactical because you're like in it, and when you die, you're just done.
Right.
There's a lot of games like that.
But it's really fucking cool. There isn't a whole lot for the PlayStation, and it's a PlayStation VR game.
Now this is why I'm sitting here going, I don't know what the fuck you're very.
Well, I think
thinks you're very descriptive about this game.
Okay, one sec. I will get a name.
All right,
here.
You get a name. We're gonna sit here and just chill out and just.
Oh, I typed Operation in my because I've made YouTube videos on it before, and I typed Operation into my thing, and all of the fucking Arma ops that we've done showed up.
Dagger Spitfire is another member of that 80. I would say 80% of what ArmaNet is, just to be, you know.
That's okay.
Who's this Dagger nerd? Wow.
That's Spitfire.
I'm used to it. I'm used to it.
Well, I guess Spitfire's been on the podcast before.
What is ArmaNet? What is ArmaNet?
What is ArmaNet?
Oh. What is ArmaNet? It's a podcast about Arma on the net.
What a shitty answer.
Release it on the net.
That's actually that's probably the best answer. That's better than what we even did.
No, it's a show. It's a show about Arma and the community, and it's honestly it's done because we like playing the game. If we didn't play the game and enjoy it, I probably wouldn't do the show. So they kind of go hand in hand, and they, the kind of the love for one kind of fuels the other, so to speak, I guess. So, and it's allowed us to kind of get ingrained in the community a lot faster than just, through other methods.
Don't you guys have a big interview coming up soon?
Yeah, we're going to be interviewing Pete Morrison at now he's at Bohemia Interactive Simulations, but he's like He's way up there. He's not this. He's like the C chief. I'd have to ask.
Like the CFO or something?
Yeah, CFO. Something like it's chief marketing officer, maybe. Something like that. I'd have to look specifically, but he's right up there, with the CEO, and it should be an interesting interview. And we've gotten a lot of support.
When is that interview going out?
Probably recording on Wednesday night, so probably like Thursday.
All right. Well,
generally
just
we
if you're
turn
watching
them
this,
around in one day.
if you're watching this later on YouTube, the links for all of the ArmaNet shit is going to be in the description down below. So next week, if you want to watch that podcast, you can go down and find everything there. Reaver gave us about 4,000 links to put it there, so I've got everything you need.
Good.
But the game is called Firewall 0 Hour, by the way.
Okay.
That's cool.
And it's a tactical. It's very similar to Counter-Strike, except it's a lot more tactically based. Almost more like the original Rainbow Six, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
So put it like Rainbow Six with a Counter-Strike backdrop where it's like 6v6, you die, you're done, there are rounds, one's attacking, one's defending, but it's a lot more tactical, and it's a VR, and then when you've got something like this, it's a lot more immersive.
Every time you pull that out, all I can think of is like back in like really long time ago where you go to the arcade and you shoot the fucking screen with it. And like,
but it actually really helps. It feels it instead of just holding these, because I have the sticks there, I'm pointing at it with the gun, but it feels way better with this.
Reaver pointing at the real thing. It doesn't have operation in it at all.
Okay, fuck off, guys. I know. Also, it doesn't.
He says it's co-CEO.
Co-CEO. Okay. Yeah. So he's like I said, he's one of the guys that originally founded it. And then I think the other guy's name, I'll get it wrong if I say it. I was going to say it's Mark something, but either way, they started in 2007, I believe, and in the interactive at the simulations group, I think used to be a part of Bohemia Interactive originally, and they kind of split up, and now they're wholly separate companies. But I think that the ARMA community will get a lot out of the interview just because there's some cross-pollination between the two platforms, you know what I mean?
Right.
And VBS, which is their product, has always been, VBS has always been kind of the militarized version of ARMA, I guess, is what I've heard people say, where ARMA is like the commercialized version of VBS. So, yeah.
When you look at the difference, they're pretty. Pretty is. There's
I like how he's like, I got a big interview coming up. We're like, who is he? What is he? Fuck, I don't know. He's a guy.
So maybe.
And at any given time too, and hats off to Reaver because Reaver handles a lot of the scheduling stuff. But at any given time, we are talking to at least 3 or 4 groups. It could be a Milsim group, it could be a modder, could be someone at Bohemia, but we're talking to them, trying to get it scheduled. A lot of the Army community is overseas, so getting them on our time and all figuring out a time that works for everybody to record, it's a lot of effort. A lot goes into it, and that's why sometimes it takes an extra week or 2 longer than we'd like for an episode to come out. But I feel like we're putting out a lot of content. We've been putting out more video content. It's been slow, but again, there's only so many hours in the day. So.
Links are in the description for all the shit he's just talking about, by the way.
So, but
not in the Twitch description. Sorry.
No, in the YouTube. This is for the future people. You plebs watching right now, no, you're not important. This is for the later guys.
Yeah, but we have a lot of cool ideas on things that we want to do for the show that are just kind of different, that aren't stuff that we can turn around a little faster. So, we're thinking about doing maybe. Kind of a Blue 4 versus Op 4 Zeus, just AI battling out, placing bets
that's
or something.
Cool.
Just doing fun, silly shit like that is easy to turn around, but so there's always like content coming because content generation's hard, and quality content generation's even harder. So
I know. Look at Viking, dude. Yikes. Yeah. Coming from the guy who puts a video out every day.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it. I really don't. But I'm also old, so.
Yeah, but it comes from a lot of different stuff. So, like, let's just say Viking and I play Sea of Thieves for 4 hours, let's just say. And we do 3 of those Tall Tale quests. Well, that's 3 different videos. So I'm not going to make one video out of that.
Yeah.
Or, like, tonight, for example, we're going to be doing the podcast with you right now, which is going to come out on YouTube later. Then we're going to go to do an op. with Spartak, and then after that, whoever sticks around will probably play something.
Yeah.
There's 3 videos right there.
Yeah.
So in one evening, I kind of, you just need to, like for me, for example, when I open any game, my recording software also starts. So I don't not record anything, and if something happens, I just make something out of it. So as long as I'm playing stuff comes out. Sometimes it ends up being a lot of the same game coming in a concession because of that, but
yeah. And I think for me, it's always been a little bit, since I'm at least in our Milsim group, since I'm the primary mission builder. I feel like
you're the
my
90% of the group is what you're saying.
Well,
God, his percentage just raising every time.
You know, luckily 110%. Well, luckily I have Reaver to handle a lot of the kind of like rallying people or the organization,
the 10%.
and all that stuff that's equally important. But the mission building, though, it is a huge time sink, and I feel like when I do get on, there's almost this responsibility I have to all of our members that, like, okay, we need to have something to play. You know what I mean? So there's a little bit of pressure that's involved with that. I'm like, making sure something's ready, and I feel bad sometimes when we'll play like the same mission for like the 3rd time, which is why, again, I build all my missions with a lot of like random shit in it. But it's a lot. So to remember to record and to produce video content and all that on top of it.
That's the hardest part. The hardest part is after the recording, is editing it and putting it together. Because again, we might play 4 hours and I'm going to make 3 videos out of it. Yeah. But I'm not just going to cut from the beginning of one mission to cut at the end. I'm going to cut that hour into 12 minutes or whatever.
And a lot of times I'm like, it'll be 30 minutes into the mission. I go, oh, damn it, I should have recorded this. I don't even think about it. I don't even think about it at all. So.
Yeah, I've missed opportunities that way. Something cool will happen, and I'm like, "Fuck, I should have recorded that." So I just got in the habit that, like when we do our ops, for example, before I even open TeamSpeak, I haven't even opened Steam yet. I hit record.
Yeah.
So I don't worry about it.
That's because with Spartak, they have a conversation where you might, you personally on YouTube can cut and paste that in there, but when it comes to me recording on Twitch or streaming it, I can't do that. Because some people in the group like to have conversations about stuff that I can't really record. So
on YouTube, I get demonetized. On Twitch, he gets banned. So, and I don't mind being demonetized. So I'll leave in those really awful jokes because they're funny, but they're bad. Whereas we kind of have to get that out of the way before the op starts, because once it starts, Viking can get in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I mean, luckily though, when it comes to me, especially in regards to Reaver, Reaver really handles all the Discord shit, I do the Twitter posts, but he answers all the messages and stuff and handles a lot of that too. I just can't keep up with everything. So that's why I think me and Reaver have been able to successfully, and again, not just Arma, this has been in other games we've played too, but I think that's why we tend to make a decent team, because the stuff he likes to focus on is the stuff I don't like to focus on, and vice versa. So it, to run any sort of community, as it takes it's a lot of effort, man. It can turn into a full-time job.
You're running 2 communities, really, and that's why you needed more people. You can't do it by yourself. Well, you can't do it by yourself.
So I think what we're going to do is, as our op is going to be coming up very soon, we're going to start wrapping this up. But the question that was posed to you is, when can we see a Spartak 111 SOG combined ops mission?
Well, that would be really cool. I think we need to find out what 111 SOG's role would be, what your role would be, and
this is the funny part.
How we homogenize that mod pack.
This is the funny part. I've actually been meaning to get in touch with both of you about this. That me and Farside actually been kind of already putting a theory out there already of what to do. We talked about it for a bit, and then I just said I need to get in contact with Dagger and Reaver about it, so we can talk about it later if you get time or not.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing with any combined op is the mod packs.
Yeah, and that's what we've been looking at too. The
good thing is that I kind of been working on it's not done yet, but I've been kind of working on an all-in-one, small, lightweight 111 SOG mod that would just be our essentials that we need, and it's not very much. It's just a few things.
Like clothing and stuff.
It's like 2 clothing options, a couple, like 1 or 2 rifles that we tend to use, because a lot of our members like to use the Honey Badger, and A couple of other little items. It's not much. I'm trying to keep it like around, the 200 megabyte mark, something small and digestible, that we could do more combined ops, because we've had members in the past that have been interested in that, and as we've met more groups, the conversation naturally does pop up.
And
Right.
with the size of your
it's
group,
difficult.
with the size of your group, it's great. You could go into like a really big group's operation,
Yeah.
and you could be like a role playing your side of it. So like,
Yeah, we would love to do more of that.
say you joined like a group that's like giant group, massive 50-man group, but then you've got your like 6 people that is like a role playing side of the group.
Yeah. And I have some experience with that when we had a previous version of 111 Saga, when that kind of came to an end. In the interim, when no one was around, I actually sort of acted as a freelance pilot for other groups who needed one.
Still with the 111 banner, basically?
Essentially, I just called it the 111th Air Wing, and it was a small, lightweight mod pack. It was about 300, 400 megabytes. It contained some helos and some loadout stuff that I really wanted to use, but I didn't even need it. I could have flown the normal helos, because everyone uses the same ones generally.
Right.
And I did a lot of freelance flying for groups. It was usually groups that were in the member range of like 5 to 25. But it was really interesting doing that. I actually learned a lot about, working with people that, doing combined ops and working with people that you don't normally work with. So that was a hell of a lot of fun, though. So I'd love to do more
especially
stuff like that.
because Spartak and 111, I mean, I would say we're both
on opposite sides of the chain.
No, I would just say that they're I think we would work well together, but there's definitely a difference.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's why I think that it's like figuring out what role do you want us to play. You know what I mean?
Or it'd be the same going the
or
other way too.
The other way around.
Right, and I think that's why it might be a good idea to approach it like someone is sort of the host of the mission. For example, it's either it's like a Spartak mission with 111 as a guest, and then we can kind of like
fold in
and kind of make ourselves fit into that slot that's available. That may be changing some of our tactics, changing some of the communication, whatever, but we fit that whole, or vice versa, because I think if you just try to take two opposites, and I don't even know how opposite we are, but if you just take two things and put them together and hope it works out, there may be problems. But
it definitely take a couple of weeks of just talking it out, mission building. It would take a while.
The right type of mission and whatnot,
Yeah, but sadly we do have to start wrapping it up.
Yes. So
we're gonna keep talking otherwise. So
start the Twitch wrap up.
Twitch wrap up. What do I even do? Thank you guys so much for coming. I appreciate it. Yeah, it was a great interview. Dagger, thank you so much for coming on
thanks
the
for
show.
having me.
Absolutely.
We've got both of you guys on the show now. We've made it fair. So there's no bias against each one. You're both great, both of the ArmaNet guys.
Awesome. Absolutely.
Definitely go check out the podcast. You guys are up to what episode? What on your podcast?
If you include the previous ArmaNet kind of library of shows, which I do, I mean, we're somewhere up in like the 40th episode or something like that.
So you got plenty to listen to on your trip to and from work, whatever.
Yeah.
So go check it out. All the links will be in YouTube description for Cooper. And thank you so much for coming on. Yeah,
appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
And for the future people who are watching this in the future, hi. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys had fun. If you see anything else on the channel here that you like, you could throw a like on there and subscribe. All the links to Vikings Twitch, ArmaNet, everything. As I said earlier, Reaver gave me the salad of links to throw in there. So if you want to find out about anything or about anybody who's been on this podcast, you can find it in the links down below. It was really good having you here. I'm glad we could get you both in there. And I hope that if you're watching it now, I hope you guys have a good evening. If you're watching this in the future, I hope you guys have a good day. And as always, we will see you in the next video, podcast, stream, or whatever is next for us.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Thanks, guys.
See you later.
Later, dudes.
Gators.